about it with 14 all the time. They just run out of memory. So it's not about do they have the ideas and do they have Square Enix's support and do the gamers want it? It's just physically not possible. And you have to have all of them, and they have to all be going off simultaneously. Like Elio said, like if you drop any of those legs, the whole thing falls over. So I know we're focused on how the artists are affected by the AI, and the difference between the AI and the sewing machine is the sewing machine at no point was taking other people's stuff that was sewn and
learning
them.
a little bit different.
This is taking art from the very artist it's putting out of a job and learning from that art, and by learning, sometimes it's just reusing.
The problem with that, though, is that all of us have been giving these companies and agreeing to the terms all of the art and assets and images for over the last like 15, 20 years as this medium comes out. But the solution in my mind, because I actually agree, is that if these machines have been trained up on, and you are included, if they can come up with a way, like some kind of level, a law of an ownership of the data, that it's like, hey, this is your data, it was used to train this stuff. And then as that gets sold and resold, guess what? Here's your cut. Here's your take of that. That's the only time of a solution that I could see working. Because at the end of the day, like I can't right now fathom another solution that is both market and demand appropriate. Otherwise it's like, well, just don't use AI. And it's like, I think people were going to find ways to use AI and maybe not report it.
It's just not going to work. Like saying just don't use an innovative tool that is going to, what you're going to have is there are going to be people who, for lack of a better word, will be Luddites about it and to be like, no, I'm not going to use it. And the world's just going to move on. Like it's what happens. It's what happens.
My dad went to school for engineering.
Computers.
And told me when I was a kid that the internet was a fad and we didn't need it in the house.
Your dad apparently was also in charge of Nintendo at the time, I believe.
So, that's a real thing. There's a Malcolm Gladwell book that talks about kind of the importance of when you're born. And what you just suggested, Brian, will work in the short term. But what will happen is 50 years from now, there's going to be a bunch of billionaires who were the first people who learned how to acquire and patent the data that fuels the AI of 2080. And in 2028 to 2030, which means they need to be young enough to be in the space and taking risks. They need to be old enough to have the resources that when they see the risks, they can go pay for the rights and whatever. So they are likely teenagers right now, because if they're not born yet, they're going to be too late. The rights will have already been claimed. If they're our age, they'll be too busy on like, I could stay up late and try to acquire that stuff, but I'm going to spend time with my kids. I'm going to keep working on my job I already have because I have a mortgage to pay. So there's this group between teenagers and maybe 25 years old that you need to be in that range right at the time that the flags can be placed. And then once you place them, that's how you get a Bill Gates. That's how you get like there were other people like Bill Gates born 10 years earlier and 10 years later, and we don't have any idea who they are. He was the right person, but he was the right person who was also born at exactly the right time.
Yeah.
And it's shocking how many people that are instrumental to what we think of as the backbones of the internet, the backbones of modern OSs and all those, even if you do go research other names, they're all born within like the same 2 calendar years. It's wild because it was the right time. So what you're suggesting sounds like a great solution. And if it does become like it sounds great, but if we implement it, what it's going to result in is it's going to be the first people that figure out how to monopolize it will become the world's first trillionaires.
Deck of billionaires. Yeah.
And then that'll be it. And they'll be the Microsoft of 2080, like the world's largest company.
Yeah. And to just kind of bring this back to 14 a little bit, on your original point about requiring architect at clients and landscape, kind of what you're saying about architects, everyone thinks that they're going to be the OCP, right? It turns out not everyone's the OCP. Not everyone's has the skill set to be able to lead. Because it's not just you need a great idea and a great work ethic. You also need to be able to lead your crew. You need to have the experience to know how to make sure that time is used correctly. It's many skills are required to do it well.
Yeah. Now, as we transition into kind of our main topic, because we did talk a little bit about the layoffs, and obviously our sympathy goes out. I do struggle when I see people say empathetic, because like I don't know personally anybody that was laid off. I do like layoffs suck. But like I can't feel like like they feel. So I always like when people, I think people confuse the term empathy and sympathy, but that's my opinion. But still, we're going to see that, throughout this year. This year alone has already got record layoffs. And what I tend to see is people say record profits, record layoffs. But I know that being in the business world, it's not as clear cut. It's, like profits don't necessarily mean that your job is always going to be safe. And I do always try to like focus in on the truth of all of this is that your job is not safe. Don't let these companies market to you, because I think a big part of the problem, especially with the bigger companies like Microsoft and Google and even Twitter to an extent before the takeover, is that hey, we're a community. Like, we have all these services. We'll do your laundry. Like, this is your community. We're a family. Whenever a company,
it's the word family.
We're not a company. We're a family.
Yeah.
I'm like,
family.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like,
well, when fast food companies do that shit too, it's particularly hilarious. Like, I worked for Raising Cane's like 10 years ago or something, and they're like, we're family. I'm like, you pay me minimum wage to fry chicken. Shut up.
And you can't fire your brother. Like, you might not like sitting at him next to Thanksgiving, but you can't fire your brother. You can be like, get out of here, lay off. We changed directions for the company. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, it's like, that is in and of itself, I think, is one of the things that I'm like, if anything good ever comes out of this, educate yourself and prepare to be laid off at any point. So that way it's not actually a bad day. You get your severance package, hopefully, and take a little holiday. Now, I do want to say thank you so much, Real Kitty Hawk, aka Wes, for his tier 3 sub support over on the Twitch side of things. 53 months of support. A freaking legend, and we cannot do this show without you guys. Also, I got some plans this year for some exclusive member content right here on Work to Game, and Chris has been working on some big videos that hopefully you'll be able to see. But now we get to sit down and talk some Final Fantasy. I think we've covered the news. Unless you guys have any other things you want to add to that conversation?
I'm sure we could talk about it all day if we wanted to.
Yeah, we're content creators. We can talk about anything until we pass out.
Nothing out of air.
But I want to shift to the concept, obviously, of the new world for Final Fantasy 14. I jokingly said that Dawn Trail has been this, how do we get Brian back? Like,